.76. Alrighty guys, so I am Doug, the nomadic rifleman, so we're going to start naturally with a rifle. So we're going to start in the standing position. So now remember, the shooting stance, the priority here is to establish a base with your body to support the weapon system. Now, if you are shooting a standing position, it is probably an expedient position for you, or you are in a context where where being prone just doesn't make sense. The amount of time it takes to get into and out of the prone is in that context what's the word I'm looking for? A detriment to your survivability or successfulness. For example, inside of a home, getting into a prone position takes a couple of seconds. For me, it takes about 3.5 seconds to get to a prone unsupported position. It takes me about 3.5 seconds to get out of it. If you are working inside of 20 meters, that time is extremely critical, and you need to be very fluid and dynamic, as the kids say, with your ability of motion, because that is a good way to keep yourself alive. So being able to snap into a good standing position that's good and solid, what you're trying to do is not only provide a way to keep that reticle stable enough for your context, again, that is key, but also to provide a support for the rifle, or for whatever weapon it is, be it a shotgun or a pistol, to have a good thing to recoil into and to maintain its steadiness, so that you can work that rifle until your problem is solved, whether that's a drill, a scenario-based training event, or an actual life event. So that being said, starting at the base, you're going to want a good athletic stance. So having a slight, and I don't mean like this, I'm not talking like super exaggerated, I'm saying just a slight bend in the knee, just kind of go straight with the legs and break that to a slight angle. That's all we're talking about, okay? So, matter of fact, sorry, I have knee pads on because I was about to get into some stuff earlier. I'll take those off so you can see what I've got going on here. All right. Alta knee pads are awesome, by the way. So here's straight. What I'm talking about, just slight bend, not anything crazy, just slight bend. We're not getting into it like this. We're just slight bend, okay? Now, there are times where working certain pieces of cover, you might want to load a leg, i.e. put it under pressure so that you can more quickly push off of that leg, but that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about establishing your base shooting position. So understand, this is for the person that is new to shooting, not for the person that is trying to take their shooting and mix it to their movement and their explosiveness off of a piece of cover or whatever. So that being said, good strong base, feet a little bit wider than shoulder width apart. If your non-dominant leg is under your shoulder, take a half step back with your dominant leg. For me, that's my right leg, and that's going to kind of give you a nice solid base. You're going to bend slightly forward, and I'm at the hip. So especially if you're a woman watching this, it's very common for a woman to, or some men as well, but it's very common with women for reasons we'll talk about in a second, to kind of do this number where they want to kind of counterbalance to kind of give a way to support the rifle. That's going to be working against the way your body wants to actually work. So what you want to do is slight bend in the knees, and then at the hip itself, keeping the rest of the body straight, you want to bend forward slightly forward, so that you're more of an aggressive stance into the rifle itself. Something to look at a good fighting position, and you're basically just mimicking that, and then taking your hands and moving it to a rifle instead of being closed hands. Okay, so good solid base with the feet, slight bend in the knees, slightly bent forward at the hip, and then rifle stock being in the outer pectoral muscle right here, not out on the shoulder, but down here in the actual meat of your chest. So you want to base that in there. You want to take this hand and pull back into your shoulder, and then same thing with this hand, using the same grip that you would use with your pistol, pressed into your forearm, your hand guard, and then that is going to, and everything snugs it up and pulls it back into the shoulder, and that is what you're going to do. Now you're going to try to avoid turtling down onto your weapon. You don't want to turtle in like this. That's not comfortable. You're going to strain yourself out, but a good solid, everything's nice and tight, and your rifle has a nice solid base to recoil into. All right, now we're going to go into a kneeling position. So we're going to keep this really simple. You're going to point your toe in the direction in which you're going to want to be firing, in the direction of your target, basically. Here, let me drop the camera probably a little bit. So you're going to point your toe in the direction of the target that you're shooting at, and then you're going to drop down, pointing your knee, your opposite knee, outwards at approximately a 45-degree angle, and then you can either kick this heel over and sit on it or keep it up like this. I broke my ankle, so it's a little bit tight, not very comfortable for me to sit on, so I just keep it up. That will give you a little bit less stability, so to speak. Then you want to keep this as straight as you can, and then put the tip of your elbow, the bone, just past the bone of your knee, so that little shelf right there, that little fleshy spot, is where you're setting your elbow on. So then you're going to put your rifle in this hand and snug it slightly back into your shoulder. You're going to lose a little bit of recoil control in this position, but natural point of aim should bring the weapon back on target after the recoil impulse. And then you're simply going to take this hand and apply it to your grip, and that will give you a pretty solid kneeling position. Show you guys again on the other side. So everything else is the same. And notice I'm not all hunched over. I'm a fairly upright, natural, comfortable position. And then we'll talk about prone. So on a prone. Alrighty guys, so I'm gonna do the prone position again. I didn't like how it came out. So I'm gonna first do this pointing towards the camera, and then I'm going to do it pointed away from the camera so that you can see me establishing everything from two different angles. So first of all, this ground, super not comfortable for the old elbows, but that is okay. We're going to deal with it, and keep it noted, if you're in a field environment, maybe consider wearing long sleeve clothing. If you can find some like BDU style garments that aren't super duper militaristic, that's probably a great idea, unless you want to look super militaristic, in which case more power to you. Anyway, so what we want to start with is getting as flat out and on the ground as we can. So you can see that I've got my feet and ankles flat on the ground. I've got my knees oriented, like the bony cap of my knee, oriented outwards so that I can get the inner flesh of my thigh on the ground. I've got my body fairly relaxed and neutral in regards to like tension. And then I'm going to cradle my rifle in my arms with slightly outward direction on my elbows to create almost like a sawhorse for my rifle to rest in, with my rifle pulled back into my shoulder, kind of inner collarbone area. Find somewhere comfortable for your rifle stock to rest, and then face oriented down the rifle. Now, you want to have the rifle oriented so that it is pointing down the body. You want the recoil to be absorbed by the entirety of the body mass. You don't want to orient the rifle like this. Now there might be circumstances where you do this, But the issue is that your recoil is going to flow awkwardly through your shoulder and out the body, where your rifle is going to pull itself off target through recoil. When you have the rifle oriented with a bunch of mass behind it through your body, what's going to happen is your recoil is going to be much snappier back to the target, and you're going to find that your weapon stays oriented at the target through recoil. This will allow you to be more accurate, to be more comfortable, to have faster follow-up shots, and to maintain eyes on the target as you engage it. Now, as far as prone supported, that can be accomplished either through supporting the weapon on something in your environment, a log, a bipod, sandbags, a barricade, a tree, whatever, or using the magazine to monopod the rifle. Now, if you're using a proper modern combat rifle like an AR-15 or AK-47, there's no problem at all with monopoding the rifle, and that can give you an excellent way to stabilize your rifle and just sync it up with yourself really fast, and you can get some extraordinarily good shooting done monopoding just simply off of the bipod. I'm sorry, off of the magazine as a monopod. I'm gonna go ahead and turn around so you guys can see this down the other way, and hopefully you guys are getting a useful angle here. All right, so we're going to establish this position again. Now you can see how I rolled everything out like that so that my kneecaps aren't on the dirt. Everything's nice and happy. And then I've got my, ooh, this is way more comfortable. Then I've got my arms oriented, cradling the rifle, and rifle more or less center line down the mass of my body. And that is an incredibly stable position. Alrighty guys, we're gonna make the pistol stuff separate, but I wanted to talk about context for this. So we're gonna do the pistol in a separate video. Let's talk context for the shooting positions. All right. So for me, in my exposures and opinion, it is pretty rare, honestly, in a field environment, not a groomed range, not a live fire where everything is set up for you to be successful. In the real world, in field environments, when you're going out and doing force on force or maneuver training, the times that you can actually implement a proper, other than standing's pretty easy. When it's appropriate, it's pretty easy to manage. Because it's literally just you're walking and and it needs to happen, right? So that's pretty straightforward. But as far as a good kneeling position or a good prone supported or unsupported position, it's pretty rare that you can sync up into a quick prone supported position and take a shot. Of course it happens, and it's something you should be comfortable with, but more practically is being comfortable with your rifle and understanding what you are trying to mimic in your field environment, right? So if you understand what a good solid reticle looks like, and good stability looks like, and good recoil management looks like, and then you take that and you implement it through time and exposure in a field environment, whatever that is in your context, you can start becoming very proficient in building hasty firing positions and really getting pretty close to that prone supported performance. You might be doing this through a standing supported position where you are, grabbing a tree and then resting your rifle and snugging everything up. You might be figuring out doing some weird mix between kneeling supported and unsupported. A great place, strangely enough, to look for this is PRS matches. Some of those guys have really taken expedient shooting positions and made it into a true art. And if you are interested in being a very competent field marksman, that might be somewhere to start looking, is the PRS atmosphere. Because what those guys are doing is taking unconventional positions, building them up, and then engaging very small targets at very far distances. 1 minute targets, like I described in the last video, 1 minute being 1 inch, approximately 1 inch per 100 yards. So a 1 MOA target at 500 yards is approximately a 5-inch target, okay? And that is incredibly, if you don't have a lot of shooting context, imagine a what's a good side, Imagine shooting a half gallon of milk 5 football fields away, right? And not from a good prone supported position. I'm talking from on top of like a some sort of weird barricade. It's pretty incredible. Now, of course, they're using very dedicated rigs with that, with good magnification, and that might be out of your context. But the information and how they're building their shooting positions is not out of context. That is very important if it's within your context. So, with that being said, the idea here is so that when you are going through your environment and through your contextual training and exposure in your life, taking this information you learn on the range and applying it as appropriate to your shooting interests. Okay, so if you are interested in being a better hunter, the basic firing positions are going to allow you a level of knowledge and experience to apply in the field to build non-conventional shooting positions. Okay, and the more you do that with knowledge of what good looks like and what support looks like in the traditional shooting positions, the better you can build on your experience of building your field unconventional shooting positions. And that's really the proper context of becoming a proficient rifleman in my mind, is being able to make a prone supported level shot from a built up unconventional position. Okay, that's just my opinion. All right, anyway, so that's been the rifle video. We're going to go ahead and do a pistol video separate. I think there's value in keeping these things separate just for your guys' convenience, if that makes sense. With that being said, this has been Doug with the Nomadic Rifleman. I hope you guys found this information helpful. If you did, feel free to like, share, subscribe, all that fun jazz. I really appreciate when you guys do that stuff. It helps me out a ton. I see the channel is growing. It makes me super happy. I hope you guys are enjoying it so far. Anyway, again, Doug with the Nomadic Rifleman, because everywhere deserves good and capable riflemen, capable of good traditional and non-traditional shooting positions. Y'all have a blessed day.